Welcome. This is Bountiful City Council meeting, Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. This is the work session, and all of us are here. Welcome. We'll start down there with you, Kate.
Kate Bradshaw.
Chris Simonson.
Hendelyn Harris.
Randy Lewis.
Millie Segura Bar.
Richard Higginson.
Thank you all for being here. And for those of you who are observing or here for other purposes, and our staff, we're so happy that you're all here. And with that, we'll turn some time directly over to Craig Christensen. Welcome, Craig.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me here this evening, Mayor and Council, and to talk about some of the watering restrictions that, yes?
Is the light on your microphone?
Green, yes. All right. Is that better?
Yes,
All right,
that's good.
perfect. Sounds good. Want to be heard, I guess, right? So, okay. I guess for starters, I should say that Lloyd over here was a big help with getting this document drafted and a lot of the information that was put into place here. But we did come to you guys earlier this year and asked to have some water restrictions put into place for the areas that use the culinary water for the outside purpose. And with the irrigation season coming to an end, Weber Basin's going to shut down September 20th. That can bring up some problems with our culinary water system if people decide that they want to use the culinary water throughout the city to make sure that their lawns stay green. Our system was not designed fully to have inside use and outside use for the majority of the system. For portions of the system, the southern portion and kind of the southeastern areas, that was designed to have the irrigation there. So kind of what we're looking for here is to put something in place that will allow us to maybe not have that trying time on our system like we've had. We have talked about, we've had some pretty good conversations with the Parks Department and the golf course in regards to them having restrictions as well. Most of the parks that are in the city they use irrigation water for that. There is one park, North Canyon Park, that uses the culinary water to water the lawns there on that facility. And obviously the golf course is also kind of a double. It has the irrigation, but it has the ability to use the culinary water as well. With conversations with Brock and the staff at the golf course, would like to implement a few of the things like raising lawnmowers so the grass is a little bit longer, and watering just I'm not a golfer, so you have to bear with me, but just the greens and I guess the tee boxes, but not the rough areas, I guess, in between. And then spot water as needed. So they do pay for that culinary water, and being able to, if they're able to do that, to not have drastic grass problems next year when they go to have the golf course open back up. You don't want any turf damage. And obviously use in spots like Town Square and our parks will see a lot of use without being able to have that irrigation water. It could have some problems that way too, but with the spot watering, they should be able to take care of that. So like I said earlier, the current restrictions are allowing the use of water for 3 days a week. We've been monitoring that, and we've had, I think it was 22 people that we gave violations to for just a warning, and we've only had one that we had to go into the fine system where we put $100 onto their utility bill for watering outside of hours. So the residents of Bountiful have been pretty compliant with all that. But some of the numbers that Lloyd has put in here, July 21st, the water consumption was 103%. And that was July 20, and then August 21, it was 91%. So the water use has gone down some, and people are complying with that. Obviously, some of the significant impacts that we could have is a water department is loss of revenue. But the overall goal would be to preserve that water resource and be able to have that for storage and consumption in homes. The enforcement that has taken place, we've had the water department that has been enforcing this. The code enforcement and planning have all been part of going around and making sure that everybody's in these compliance. But also one of the things that we'd like to do is evaluate come spring 22. Hopefully we have a good snowpack this year. Then we can get some good water to come down the canyon for our treatment plants. We'll be able to have that as a source of water to fill up our reservoirs. So it's kind of a recommendation right now from the city engineer and us here at the water department that we would also restrict these culinary water use for irrigation purposes as of September 20th at the same time. So we don't run into any issues with our system running out of water in the reservoirs, that we don't have any backflow problems that can contaminate the water system and have larger problems that way. But still at the same time being able to allow the certain facilities, the high use facilities in the city, be able to use that culinary water. We'd like to go again with an enforcement, which should be a first offense, would be a written. Second offense, $100 fine to the utility bill. Third offense, $250 fine. Fourth, $500. And the fifth offense would be a $1,000 fine. And then I believe it's culinary would be terminated for 3 days just because of the severity of things. We'd also like to add in there an additional fine of $500 for connecting to a culinary water source with the irrigation system without a backflow prevention device, and placing into service a backflow prevention device, which has been tested by a technician and reported and has not been submitted to Bountiful City Water Department. Kind of like to open this up to council and just see what you guys think. Get some recommendations on what you guys feel would be best for the residents here in Bountiful.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Yes.
On how long do you think we'll be watering those two areas at the golf course? Is there a plan on when we would stop watering up there, or is it depends upon the snowfall and the temperature?
I think it kind of depends on the rain and the snow. They want to keep it good, you know, for the golfers as long as they can, and to not cause the damage to those greens in the golf course area that could be more costly than the culinary problems.
So do we have a way of monitoring how many gallons of water is used at the golf course for these two areas?
It's kind of tricky at the golf course. It's actually not one of the metered sources, but we can get the math equations out and do the gallons per minute and how long do they run it per day, and we can get a pretty spot on use of what they would be.
So you have a plan
Yes.
and kind of a minimum amount of water that you'd use there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Chris, maybe just as help, probably the tee boxes and the greens, both together wouldn't be even 10% of what one hole would be as far as the fairway, the size of the fairway and the rough. Probably not even that, it's probably 5%, maybe less. So what they're watering is really minimal compared to the whole golf course. Do
Yes.
you agree with that,
Oh,
Craig?
yeah, for sure.
Yep. So what they're doing is really cut themselves at least 90, maybe 95% water reduction in this plan. But keeping the essential things still alive.
Craig, this question is maybe for you, maybe it's for Gary or Lloyd. Have we already gotten word out to residents about the restrictions with connecting culinary to secondary water?
No, we have not as far as this, but it is in the city code
Okay.
that these backflow prevention devices do need to be put into effect, and they have to be approved and everything. So we haven't put it on social media or got it out for this yet.
Okay.
But
Do we have a drought item on our homepage on the city website?
Yeah, I believe we do, that we have a link with information about water restrictions and what's expected.
Out of all of these issues, that's the one I think that's most concerning to our system in general, is the possibility of getting that cross-contamination. So my recommendation would be to get something specific about this on there as quickly as we can, if that's agreeable to the council, and make sure people know. So we have a lot of handy folks around town who may be able to hook something up they shouldn't.
Great, I saw some heads nod, so.
I have a question on the stats on the water use under the current restrictions. Are the stats where people have used 103% of the total from July of 2020, is that just in the areas where Bountiful is providing the irrigation water, or is that our citywide consumption is still higher than last year's July?
So that analysis I did takes into account all the metered water sales around town, commercial users, residential users, and that was a comparison of from month to month, just to see what everybody had done. From year to year, rather, from July of 2020 to July of 2021.
So it wasn't just the comparison for the yellow area on the chart, it was all of it? Okay.
Across the board.
Do you think that because people were cutting back in the areas that are blue or green or orange on the map, that they were cutting back on their irrigation water through whatever special service district territory they're in, that they were supplementing their outside watering with culinary water, that we were above last year's total?
That's a possibility.
Okay.
I don't know that we have a way to identify that, really.
I just thought that was somewhat like disconcerting to see that with all the messaging statewide on conserving water, that we had actually consumed more water than last July, despite the enhanced messaging at every level.
Right, and I'll be honest, when I ran the August numbers, I was disappointed that, we only saw, now granted, 9% is 9%. But
I
had
agree with
hoped-
you that
I had
that-
hoped for higher.
91% only makes me feel marginally better than 103% the month before, but it's still not
Right.
great, given the description of conditions and forecasts.
I would bet we've seen a significantly higher reduction in secondary water use than the 9%.
Were you able to get any numbers from Bountiful Irrigation, given they're our largest special service district? Have they seen a reduction in our secondary water usage in those
I
areas?
didn't ask. My conversations with them earlier in the year was that they weren't concerned about getting after and promoting a lot of restrictions because they said that they typically only use about 2/3 of their allotment anyway. So they felt like normal use would be fine, that they'd be able to accommodate normal use.
So I don't necessarily have any reservations about the resolution as is presented, except I do think, along with Councilman Higginson's comment, that if we really want people to change their behavior, we have got to ramp up our communication of that, and also making sure that as we see violations, that we're addressing that. There are probably some good ideas we could borrow from other cities. I recognize that being able to actually have meters to give us good data is helpful. I was noticing our friends up in Layton were weekly posting how much water their residents had conserved and saved, and I recognize maybe they aren't covered by as many special service districts with unmetered water as we are, but I think we probably have to find additional ways to penetrate that message, since our stats don't look like we received the message.
Other questions? Just for note, at Legislative Affairs for the Davis County Chamber of Commerce, Weber Water Basin said that on a normal year, for runoff, they get 270,000 acre-feet of water on a normal year. 270,000 acre-feet. And this year they had 7. That's why there was no runoff. They had 7,000 versus 270,000 average.
It's definitely pretty dry out there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So Counselor, if there aren't any more questions, we have this on the agenda for the regular meeting tonight for adoption as a resolution. And I don't know if there are any other items. We're happy to answer them.
Did we cover that, though, Richard, with what you suggested?
Yeah, I think so.
You felt like we finished that?
Yeah,
Okay.
the only other concern I have is that I think that as we draw the aquifers down further, we're likely to see some other concerning dissolved gas data come up. And we'll have to deal with those things as they come along. But here's hoping for a good year of precipitation and groundwater and runoff.
That's what we need.
Thanks for your work on this.
Thanks, Craig. If there are no other questions, we'll let you sit.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll turn time over to Francisco Astorga, our planning director. It's yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Is it okay if I present from here?
Yes.
Great. So we would like to introduce Bird Scooter's trial period in Bountiful. Bird Rights, Inc. has approached the city in bringing 50 to 100 stand-up electric scooters to Bountiful for a one-year trial period. The official term for the company is a dockless electric micro-mobility vehicle sharing company. They have drafted a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, which has been reviewed by our city attorney, and that's found on page 11, 12, and 13 of your packets. Bird is currently working with other surrounding cities in South Davis County to expand their operating zone. They're in discussions with Woods Cross and have approached both North Salt Lake and West Bountiful. They're currently already operational in Farmington and also in Kaysville. Bird is able to set up a slow-down zone, which is an area, and they could place it anywhere throughout the city where the vehicle slows down it beeps and it slows down. Should we move forward, we would want to incorporate that most likely on Main Street during our city events. They're also able to include a no-ride zone, where same thing, where it safely comes to a stop, it starts beeping and it no longer works. We would want to activate this feature on all of our city parks. Bird operates by contracting a local fleet manager who's responsible for maintenance, repairing, and various performance tasks. The tasks are simple in that the fleet manager gets a notification on their device and says, hey, this scooter hasn't moved in 12 hours. You might want to go relocate it. That fleet manager, again, contracted by Bird, is compensated based on usage. So they want to be paying attention to where the scooters are located. The interesting part is that from the city's point of view is that they would want to, or they're set up to share their data with us, where they would give us an account where we could log in and say how many people have used the scooter. This is a trial period, as it was originated by Bird. Bird approached us. This is a one-year trial period, and both the company Bird and the city, if it becomes a problem, we're able to terminate the agreement within 30 days' notice in writing. We have had an opportunity to run this by the management team, all of the department heads, and where we got to ask questions. They went through me as I was contacted by Bird, and I've been handling this. And we do find it appropriate to move forward with the trial period. We can't guess exactly what's going to happen if it's going to be a big problem for us, but we like that clause where we're able to terminate within that 30-day notice. So we have the agreement listed on page 11, 12, and 13, and then the presentation, which was not mine. This was produced by Bird, is on pages 14 through 27. They do apologize that they were unable to make it. They do work out of somewhere in LA. They were able to present via Zoom, but they were unable to participate at this time. I will be more than happy to answer any other questions that you might have for staff at this time.
I have a couple concerns / questions. I'll list them and then you can answer as
Sure.
you will if you know the answers or for discussion. My day job office is on Main Street in Salt Lake and 2nd South, so I have been familiar with Bird scooters and their competitors and have used them. One of the things that I've noticed in downtown Salt Lake is initially everyone rode the scooters on the sidewalks. That became an issue in populated area to have the scooters zipping around people. And so then there was a requirement that the scooters be used on the streets. My usage of the scooters declined at that point because of navigating the scooter with traffic. So are we prepared to discuss and put in place ordinance on where the scooters can be ridden? Can they be ridden on our sidewalks? Are they to be ridden only on our streets? I also am curious about how accurate their micro-targeting of slow zone and no-ride zones are. Around the parks in particular. I'm just curious how accurate they might be able to be in that regard. If they were, on Main Street by City Hall, would they be able to use it at full speed? But if they crossed 5th South and were on the section of Main Street from 5th South to 4th North, would they be able to micro-target that zone? And then my other question is about winter usage. We often are piling snow at the corners of intersections, and that seems to be areas where they park these scooters. in Salt Lake. And so it becomes an interesting picture of bird scooter carnage in the winter, with the snowplow piles being pushed over into the scooters, and the scooters are kind of buried and sticking out of the snow piles. So another thought I have is about whether there's a season, and then the birds fly south for the winter.
Well played.
There was not necessarily a bingo scorecard for that, but. So any of those.
All right, I'll take the last question first. We had this exact same question, management meeting had the exact same question. And the answer that was provided to us is that that fleet manager has that discretion to say, hey, we're gonna take a week break, we're gonna take a month break, we're gonna take a 2-month break, as they indicated to us that they operate in much harsher climates than Bountiful City. So that same fleet manager is responsible for repairing all of their scooters. If the scooter is out of commission because of it's been damaged, then there's less of a kickback that he gets, or for that compensation. So they indicated to us that there's an incentive for that fleet manager to have the equipment to be up and running when it should be running. And that many cities use that hibernation option. They didn't call it going down south, but it's more so at their own discretion. Should council feel inclined to put a clause on the MOU, we can certainly do that, and I'm looking at my city attorney for that. We can certainly do that. If that's going to kill the contract, it might. I don't know how Bird would react to that, but we can certainly set that up. Does that answer your last inquiry?
Yeah, I have, having watched the scooters in downtown Salt Lake through many winters now, I have less confidence that they will pull them if conditions are icy or snowy, because I have not experienced that in the time I spend downtown on Main Street in Salt Lake City. So personally, I would prefer that control be on the city side, and perhaps just as we have a moratorium on construction in our roadways, that we think about something in that regard, just because I do think we get interesting lake effect snows, and I would not personally be as excited to ride a scooter given the snow piles on the side of the road or on the way they're piled on the sidewalk. I think it makes for snowboarding rather than scooter.
Yeah, and we agree with you. So they don't start with that clause in the MOU, but we can certainly, this is why we're bringing it before you. We can certainly add something to that effect, which may end up saying that they're not interested. I'm not, it is what it is. Regarding the accuracy, I've only ridden a different brand. I've ridden Lime, and I can't talk about how accurate they are. The only idea that comes to mind is perhaps you make that area bigger so it slows down before you get there, if you have any accuracy concerns. I think it can be accommodated. Again, I don't work for Lime. I'm just presenting the item. Regarding sidewalk usage, I've done a little bit of homework here, and what the Bird requests their users or communicate to their users is that they're supposed to operate under Utah bicycle laws. In doing some research, the state doesn't prohibit using a Bird scooter on the sidewalk. I made a phone call to a member of our planning commission who works for the Transportation Planning Department of Salt Lake City. I had this conversation with Lynn Jacobs yesterday, and he showed me a few websites where Salt Lake City proactively prohibited not bird scooters, but the scooters in general from their downtown area from riding on the sidewalks. I don't know what was their logic on that. But as a city, we could pass an ordinance prohibiting them from anywhere that it would be that we see fit. Would that make it so Bird goes away and doesn't move forward with it? I'm not quite sure. Obviously, Salt Lake City is a bigger market than Bountiful, but That's what I have on riding on sidewalks. I completely recognize that I would feel much safer on some bountiful streets than others, riding on the street, and also the sidewalk. It just sort of comes with the territory, I guess. But we can certainly put up any clause if you felt inclined that, that they shouldn't be on a sidewalk. There was some confusion whether state law allowed it, and we had some correspondence with Chief Beeler where he clarified that they are allowed on sidewalks.
And I guess I would say from the perspective of someone riding them, when I have used them in downtown Salt Lake, I feel safer riding them on the sidewalk. I have also been a pedestrian on the sidewalks downtown, especially when they first came out and were being used a lot in the summer season. Having people zip around you and weave in and out, made for, especially on Salt Lake City's Main Street, made for a really chaotic and sometimes scary pedestrian experience. In looking at Bountiful as a city on the hill, I imagine there's only a certain range of streets that this is attractive to. I mean, if you've tried to ride one up a hill, they're not that powerful. They're not going to get you up 1800 South to Mueller Park Junior High. So the attraction would be, I think, kind of in our Plat A area.
Right.
And that would mean our Main Street sidewalks and the town square, I think, would be a prime target, but would also be a prime target for those potential clashes of sidewalk user groups.
I noticed that it said to ride, it's 18 and older. I was just guessing that some people that would want to ride would be younger, but do you have any idea? I think that they're verifying that you are old enough to use the credit card you're using. So do you know if the riders have to necessarily be 18 or older, or if that's just the the payment method?
I believe it's intended for the rider, the user, to be 18 and older.
Okay. Thanks.
So Francisco, have we visited with Kaysville and Farmington as far as their using a bird and how that's working?
We have not.
I think that would be a good step to just see how that is fit into their city, since it is a city in our county. And also, maybe the length of time it's been there and what results they may have found.
Understood. We can certainly do that.
Thank you.
I like the idea of a trial period. I think it would be fun to see how it goes. And I like that we can opt out, if it's not going well. So,
Yeah, our concerns that we had, management meeting, we had major concerns with just the clutter. As most of us have visited bigger cities and have identified definite problems with how they're managed.
Any other questions? Any other things?
I think that what we would like to do is figure out if you want to move forward with the MOU as written, or if we need to come back with more information as we have the concerns that you indicated, perhaps, not perhaps, visiting with the other two user cities. We just want to know if we're ready to have the mayor sign the MOU, or if more information is needed at this time.
Is there anyone on the council that would be uncomfortable about moving to the next step?
I am uncomfortable. I feel like I'd like more information from the other South Davis cities, and I'd like to know if the other cities or Salt Lake City, the other Davis County cities, and then Salt Lake City with a longer experience, has accepted their boilerplate MOU or has modified it to be more specific to their needs and conditions.
I agree with Kate.
Okay, so we'll wait till we get a little bit more information. Everybody comfortable with that?
Great.
Richard, good? Good.
Thank you.
You got where you're headed?
We got it.
Okay, awesome. Any other items then from you, Mr. Astorga? No? So, hey, Gary, we would have some time if you wanted to report on this weekend, but maybe we ought to do that in the regular session. Should we do that?
Sure, we can do that. Just the, yeah, on the day of service.
We will then take a break now until 7 o'clock. Okay, thank you.